Video to help you with the quiz review for the 9.3, 9.4, 9.7 quiz. Remember that we are going to go back to 9.5 and 9.6 after air testing. Those lessons are still important. So the first question says, during an ice hockey game, a remote-controlled blimp flies above the crowd and drops a numbered table tennis ball. The number on the ball corresponds to a prize. Use the equation. This is the vertical motion equation. To write an equation and find the amount of time that the ball is in the air, use square roots to solve. So in other words, it doesn't want us to use our calculator, like typing it into our y equals. It doesn't want us to factor. It wants to solve with square roots. So let's write the equation. H equals negative 16t squared plus, now remember, if it's being dropped, where does it say that? If it's being dropped, then the initial velocity is going to be 0 because it's not being thrown. So you're not going to have this term. The initial height, as you can see from the diagram, would be the 45 feet. And then, usually when we do this, we find the time when the ball reaches the ground. But for here, we're going to find the time where it reaches this person's hand, which the diagram shows is 17 feet. So we're going to set h equal to 17 feet. Right, next, we are going to solve for t. So we're going to subtract the 45 over. And then 17 minus 45 is negative 28. That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to double check. So negative 16t squared. Then we're going to divide by negative 16. 16 is a perfect square, but 28 is not. So I'm just going to type this into my calculator and get a decimal. So divide by negative 16, and we get positive 1.75. And then to undo the square, we're going to take the square root. Now, normally when you take the square root when you solve, you do plus or minus, but here we can't have negative time. So we're just going to take the positive version. So square root of the answer, and I know some people don't know where the answer button is or that it exists. The answer button is right here with the negative sign. So instead of typing in 1.75, you can just press second, answer, and then it says 1.3, let's do 2 decimal places, 1.32 seconds. All right. For number 2, you are solving using square roots, round to the nearest hundredth. For some of these, we can also practice writing it as an exact answer, which means that we're not going to round, we're going to leave it in the square root. Exact answer. Okay, so for A, we're going to take the square root of both sides. Start off doing that. Why is this not working? So we have x minus 7 equals plus or minus the square root of 6. I'm just going to leave it like that because I don't know what the square root of 6 is. It's not a perfect square. There we go. And then I'm going to add 7. I'm just going to add it to the end. So the answer would be either negative square root of 6 plus 7 or positive square root of 6 plus 7. So I'm going to figure out what both answers would be as decimals as well. And I don't do that until the end. So sometimes people type in the square root of 6 at the beginning, but don't do it until the end. Okay, just save it till the end to type it in your calculator. So negative square root 6, arrow over to get out of the square root, plus 7. Oops, oh darn it. I'm just going to say plus 7. No, that's not going to do that. I'll just start over. Negative square root 6 plus 7. and then positive square root of 6 plus 7. So 4.55 and 9.45. So this one was 4.55 and 9.45. All right, for B, there is a question like A and B on your quiz. Not so much like these two. Well, this one kind of in the word problem, but definitely not one like this. So I'll mention it and I'll let you figure it out. It's not that hard. Okay, so for B, let's divide both sides by 6 first. So we're not going to distribute because we can't, since we have this as being squared. You can't distribute the square into the parentheses. Instead, we're just going to do less work and take the square root after we divide by the 6. So x plus 4 equals 3 squared. And then take the square root. So x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 3. And then we're going to minus the 4 on the other side. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 3 minus 4. So remember, this would give you negative square root of 3 plus 4, minus 4. Or positive square root, I'm going to do the other one over here, minus 4. So let's type both into our calculator. Negative square root of 3 plus 4, 2.27, and positive square root of 3 plus 4, 5.73. All right, and then just make sure that when you are doing these questions that you're showing your work, because it will require you to show your work on your quiz. And then this question, we're just going to solve for n. So we're going to add 14 over. So 9n squared equals 11. Divide by 9. And then take the square root. So we would have n equals plus or minus. Now remember that if you're taking the square root of a fraction and one of them is a perfect square, so the 9 is a perfect square, 11 is not, we can take the square root of them separately. So I can leave the square root of 11 under the radical because it's not a perfect square, but I can say the square root of 9 is going to be 3. So the exact answer would be plus or minus square root of 11 over 3. And you could also type it in your calculator to get the decimal version. All right, and I'll let you guys figure this one out. You just have to distribute the 5 in this case. You can distribute because it's not being squared out here. And then move the x's over to one side, everything else over to the other, and then solve it like part C. Okay, let's move on though. For 3, you're going to solve by graphing. So remember, we have a quadratic and a linear, so the y equals 2. That's going to be a horizontal line going through 2. So I'm going to get my line tool. So that's that equation. And then for the quadratic, we're going to need to find the vertex. So use x, I don't know what that is. I can't erase it. So use x equals negative b over 2a. So negative b would be negative 4 over 2 times a, which is negative 2. And there are 3 negatives, so 2 will cancel, but 1 will stay. So 4 over 4 would be negative 1. And then if you plug negative 1 back into the x here, you would get negative 2 times negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1. So this will just be 1. So negative 2, this will turn into plus 4. So that'll equal 2. Check it on your calculator if you are not sure. So negative 1, 2 is the vertex. Negative 1, 2, right there. And then the y-intercept is 0. and it's opening down, because I know it's 0 because there's no C. Remember, C tells us what the y-intercept is. So that means this is 0, which means over here is 0. And you could use your calculator if you want to plug this into your y equals and look at the table to get more points. Remember, we did that back in 9.1 and 2. So if I plugged in 1 in your table, you should see if I plug in 1, that would give us negative 6, because it's negative 2 minus 4. So this will be negative 6. And that means over here will be negative 6 on the mirror point. And that does give us enough points to graph. So I can see this goes up and then back down. So good review from 9.1 and 2. And then I see that these two graphs intersect each other at the point, at the vertex. So negative 1, 2 would actually be our solution here. Sometimes it'll only have one solution. Sometimes it'll have two. This one, you can see just had one. And sometimes it'll have no solutions if they don't intersect. All right, so let's do the second one. Let me do the line first. So y equals x plus 7. So that has a y-intercept of 7. We'll plot that first. A slope of 1. So we're going to be going up 1 over 1. And then down 1, left 1. I'm try to change this to red. Then draw your line. Okay, and then for the quadratic, let's use negative b over 2a. So b is negative 2 over 2 times a, which is 3. And then, oh boy, this is going to give us 1/3. Okay, so that's great. And then let's plug 1/3 back into x. I'm going to use my calculator for this. So 3 times 1/3 minus 2 times 1/3 plus 1 equals 1.33. So 1 and 1/3. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to graph that. So 1/3 and 1 and 1/3, about there. Okay, it has a y-intercept of, oh, what am I doing? I plotted the negative. Okay, so 1/3 and then 1 and 1/3. Did I do something wrong? Oh, I didn't square the 1/3. Oh gosh, okay, here. I was like, this doesn't make sense because my y-intercept is lower than my vertex and it's not supposed to be. So let me insert a square. Okay, 2/3. Sorry, 2/3. That makes a lot more sense. So 1/3, 2/3, about there. The y-intercept is 1. And honestly, I'm going to look at my table in this because I want to figure out the points to plot. I'll try to make the one on the quiz so that you don't have to, it won't be a fraction. So 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. Second table. Okay, so the other points we can plot will be, and I'm going to go positive and negative. So this will be 1, 2, and 2, 9 on the left. So 1, 2, and hopefully one of these points will intersect at the other line, and it does. So this would be one of the intersection points because this is what the line also goes through. So one of the solutions will be 2, 9. And then let's check the negative on the left side of the vertex. So the negative 1, 6. Let's see if that's an intersection point. Negative 1, 6, and it is. So although the vertex was a fraction, it did work out for us, and that that the solutions were integers, which means not fractions. Okay, so your other solution is negative 1, 6. So those are the two solutions for part B. All right, and then on your quiz tomorrow, it will ask you to graph by hand. Okay, so showing negative b over 2a, finding the vertex, not just typing into your calculator. So then these ones are with the elimination or substitution. So let's practice using elimination for one of them and substitution for the other one. So remember, for elimination, you're going to multiply the linear equation by negative 1. So this will give us negative y equals negative x minus 5. And I'm going to add the equations together. So the y's cancel, and then bring down x squared. Negative x and negative x would make minus 2x. And then 2 and 5 would make 7. Oh, sorry, this is supposed to be minus 5. I was going to say that wouldn't work if it was 7. So that would give us minus 3. And then we would factor it. So this would give us x and x. Factors of 3 would just be 3 and 1. And I'd make the 3 negative and the 1 plus. And then that would give us solutions of x equals 3 and x equals negative 1. Then you get your coordinates. So however you want to do that. I know I've seen some people using the table. Some people plug it into this one. Some people plug it into this one. If I just plug it into this one, it's shorter. So if x is 3, that gives us 8. If x is negative 1, that gives us 4. So those would be your solutions. So that's elimination. For substitution, you get them both as y equals. Here they already are. And then you just set them equal to each other. So we can say negative x squared plus 4x minus 2 equals 4x minus 6. And then I'm going to move everything over to one side. So let's subtract 4x and add 6. So that'll give us negative x squared plus 4 equals 0. Now the problem is that we have a negative x squared and we can't have that. So we're going to multiply the equation by negative 1. Well, there's a couple of different ways you can solve this, but let's just say we're doing it this way. So you get x squared minus 4 equals 0. And this is a difference of squares. I can factor this as x plus 2, x minus 2. You could also solve using square roots. And then your solutions would be x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 2. So if I plug in negative 2 back into, say, this equation, that gives us negative 6 minus 6, which is negative 12. And then if I plug in positive 2, what am I saying? 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, minus 6 is negative 14, not negative 12. And then if I plug in positive 2, that would be 8 minus 6, which is 2. And you can check it on your calculator too if you want. Okay, and then the last one says a graphing calculator question. So we are going to use this equation from the Sydney Bridge, where x is the distance in meters from the left plions and y is the height. And I think they're talking about the columns here of the arch above the water. The road can be modeled by the equation to the nearest meter. How far from the left plions are the 2 points where the rod intersects the arch of the bridge? Change the window so that you can see how high and how far the bridge goes. So I'm going to type this one into y1 and this into y2. So negative 0.00211 x squared plus 1.06 x, and then the other one would be 52. So if I just do zoom 6, okay, we're not going to be able to see what's there. We're going to have to at least go as high as 52. So let's say I change my y max to 80. And in doing that, I'm also going to change the scale to 10, just so it's not so cluttered. Let's see what that looks like. Well, I still can't see the quadratic, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my x max so that I can see more of the quadratic. How about, let's say, 200. And then I'll change my y scale to 10 again. So click graph. I can see one intersection point, but I can't see the other one. So let's go more. Let's try 800. Still not quite. I can't see the other side of it. Let's try 1200. And then you see how many tick marks were on the bottom? So if I change this to 100, then it won't look like that. I thought I was doing this earlier and that worked. Let me check my... Oh, you know what? I forgot x squared. Jeez. Okay, that's a problem. All right, there. I thought that the 800 worked. So let's change that back to 800. Okay, so now we can do our second calc intersect, second calc 5, and then I don't see where the cursor is, but if you look here, it tells you where it is. So it's at 300 right now. I'm going to move it over to the left until I can see it come down. There it is. All right, so enter, enter, enter. It says 55.1. So that's one of the answers. Meters, yes. And then do second calc 5 and then arrow over to get to the other one. So it kind of goes up where I can't see it. And it's going to start coming back down. Okay, and then enter, enter, enter. So 447.3. Those would be the solutions. Okay, I think actually this was 55.1. Sorry. So that is your quiz review. If you have any questions, you can ask before your quiz tomorrow. Thanks and have a great day.